Hey Les, morning.
Good morning, David.
How are you?
Good, man. Got my Hawaiian shirt on for you. It's Friday.
Is that you? Are you going to work with that?
No, if I can throw a lab coat on, which I used to do, then they said that's not professional. Looks too
I
casual.
like the days these days. It's just sort of a rough world out there for doctors and clinicians. Anyway, on this one, this is a big one. This is the most. I put this article on Psychology Today. Get almost 75,000 hits on it
Wow.
quickly. And self-esteem is a big deal because I don't know if you read the article I wrote, but the bottom line is that we know you're dealing with this conscious construct to deal with this massive unconscious brain. We already know about the ironic effect that we try to be a better person, you actually end up not being a better. I mean, you just get anxiety. I mean, your brain, you use conscious versus unconscious. So I don't want to bring that in today. So I just want to point out that self-esteem requires always judging yourself as better than or worse than. You're always assessing yourself, and
Right.
it just wears you out. And first of all, it's not that nice. It's not nice to other people. It's not nice to yourself. So it's actually not a very nice pattern. Second of all, there's no endpoint. Third of all, what's really nasty about it, it actually gives you more self-esteem when you judge somebody else as less than you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
So it's just the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So
I don't
that's
use
my
the word
point.
I don't use the word self-esteem at all. I use the word sense of self. Like, who do you wish
Right.
to be?
Right.
So
You
yeah.
know, we've talked about connecting to yourself, the whole thing we're going to talk about with Sarah here in a second. But yeah, the concept is bad because in California, I'm not going to talk about this either. In California, years ago, Dukakis, I think it was Dukakis at the time, put a lot of money into increasing children's self-esteem, which has totally failed. So
Yeah.
it's really, that's what the world thinks. If it's one thing to have self-confidence. That's one thing. We should talk about that a little bit. The contrast between self-confidence, which means I can do this, and here's my skill set, but you don't have to worry about whether you're better or worse than the next person about doing that. So I
Yeah.
play basketball, but I'm not a pro. You know, I mean, I'm saying so. So that's the idea. That's the only energy I want to bring out. And then as far as solutions, I have two potential solutions, and maybe you have something better. One of them is use your writing exercise to write down your judgments of other people, and then write down judgments of yourself because they're the same thing. You're just projecting your when you judge somebody, or particularly if you say it, if you're critical of somebody else, you might as well put a, is it a bullhorn? What do they call it on the megaphone? Is that a bullhorn?
Yes, yes, yes.
You might as well put a bullhorn on your head and say, this is me.
Yeah.
This is how I feel about myself, right? So it's an interesting exercise, write down your judgments for the people. And then the final answer is that if you're judgmental, it's a problem. Now you've listened to us and you try not to be judgmental, what happens? It's even more of a problem because trying not to be judgmental actually is more of a problem than being judgmental. So
Yep.
the final answer is just awareness. You just give up. Just be
Yeah.
aware of being judgmental and just watch what it does. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only answer because you cannot not be judgmental. You can't stop it. You know what I mean?
Correct, correct. So from an ACT perspective, we basically teach you to do a couple of things to recognize that there's something showing up. That's the wake up part, to wake up, be aware. So we basically have an intervention. We basically communicate with the mind by saying something like this. So let's just say the mind says, you really suck at basketball. So you think I suck at basketball. You make it into a third person. Another way of doing it is we simply say, knowing the mind is saying that I'm not good at basketball. So basically, we can kind of get a separation from the mind, from the voices, the messages, and that's a very key thing. And then we ask, how do you wish to be during this difficult moment? Like,
How do you what?
how do you wish to be towards yourself
Right.
and others?
The theme, I agree. I think that's a good. We'll bring that in also. I think we'll do our 5 minutes. I think that we'll just get the point across and then go into the strategies pretty quickly. But see, the answer. So part of it, there's no answer for it in a way, but there is just awareness. The second of all, we actually use it as something to achieve. It makes it way worse. We think this is something to be desired. Self-esteem. It's a lot different than self-confidence.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I usually tie in the polyvagal theory with self-esteem.
okay.
So that's the part I
So
can
let's
talk
on
about.
the whole thing as far as going on. I'm gonna let you say hello first, because when I'm switching screens, I can't see exactly when the Facebook Live comes on.
Gotcha.
I'll let you start. I'm going to make sure I get the recording ready to go.
Let me close my window real quickly. We're good. Let's do it.
Then I don't think you have to reintroduce yourself so much. We'll just say welcome, and here's Lesson David, Dynamic Healing Moments. So if you just mentioned Dynamic Healing Moments, that'd be great. Then we'll jump right into the topic, and I'll start the topic and then let you jump right in. So, okay, here we go. Pause. I've been recording this whole time.
Yes, you have.
So anyway, it's fine. Okay, so here we go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Les, and David is here. This is Dynamic Healing Moments. David, good morning.
Good morning, Les. How are you doing?
Man, look at this. I've got my Friday Hawaiian shirt. So I think I might have to start a trend here.
Okay, well, I'm not, again, I'm still trying hard to keep up with you. I may have to shave my head this weekend.
Please don't.
Oh, really? Okay, we won't go there. All right, I might at least try a Hawaiian shirt. That's a little bit less drastic. But anyway, today we're talking about a topic that I wrote an article in Psychology Today. I blog frequently for Psychology Today. And this is the most read article by far that I ever wrote. It was called The Myth of Self-Esteem. And I was one of those people who was just anxious to have self-esteem. I define myself by my accomplishments, by my activities, just how I thought about myself. And it took me down. And it took me a long time to figure out that, wait a second, this is not a good idea, because with self-esteem, you have to judge yourself every second. I'm better than or worse than. So you're judging other people, you're judging yourself, and where's the end point? There is no end point. So what happens is that you get worn out. It's actually not a very nice thing to do to other people and to yourself. So I realized that self-esteem is probably one of the worst concepts ever propagated on the human race. Plus, you're dealing with the conscious construct of who you are versus your unconscious brain. We've talked multiple times on this program about the power of the unconscious versus the conscious. So it wears you out. It's not nice, and is put out there something to be achieved and desired. Of course, we have parents pushing the children really hard today to be accomplished and whatever, to give them self-esteem, and it's just backfiring badly.
Yeah.
There's a judgment pattern when you're judging anybody, including especially yourself, why it fires up your nervous system. You feel anxious, or we'll use the word activated instead of anxious, and it's a big problem.
Yep. It's such a big problem that it creates a lot of psychological disorders.
Right.
And from anxiety to a variety of other things that typically in what we call the DSM-5, the psychiatric diagnostic manual. And that's where we label and diagnose people. And one of the things is we found out, and some psychologists believe this, some psychologists don't. I'm one of those psychologists that do not subscribe to self-esteem. Very much like you, there's a small group of psychologists and therapists too. And it's neither right or wrong, but it's just folks get to make their own perspective, right? So one of the things, what you just mentioned, which I love, is you said we're sort of constantly evaluating ourselves and others. Right. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Right. And check this out, David. I'm sure we all have done this. When you judge someone or put someone down, kind of inflates your ego and Correct. Inflates you. So right. there's I'm good, you're bad, or I'm bad, they're good. This constant seesawing back and forth is exhausting. Check this out. We do know that is when people self-evaluate from brain studies, and I'm going to bring in the polyvagal theory. If you ask Porges this question, he will definitely say this, is when you have self-judgment of self and others, you activate your sympathetic nervous system. You get defensive, you get scared, you're reactive, which then creates a lot of sensitivity in the body. Right. So we're adding one problem after the next. So what we're saying here sounds like that both of us were in agreement. And by the way, if no one has read David's blog, David, I hope you have the link down there. It is a great article for people to kind of get a nice gist of it, of what we're talking about. So highly agree with you. Activates the nervous system into a defensive state for chronic pain patients. it actually adds more fuel to the fire that's already sensitized their body.
And people get confused when I talk about this because I want to differentiate one major factor here. I want to reinforce something that you just said, by the way, is that it gives you self-esteem to put somebody else down.
Yeah.
That's not very nice. So when you're critical of somebody else, first of all, you're projecting your view of yourself onto that other person. That's human consciousness 101. And you
Right.
might as well put a bullhorn on your head and say, well, this is me. Particularly if you're verbally self-critical. You might as well just put the bullhorn on and say, this is me. So an exercise I would consider is actually writing down your judgments of other people and put in the next column, well, how does this apply to me? It's the same thing. And you might think it's not, but guess what? It actually is. So it's a very sobering, enlightening experiment. So, but the other thing is that there's a big difference between self-confidence, which is critical. In other words, I'm confident to go into surgery that I can do this, but it doesn't make me a better person because I can do this surgery. That's a big difference.
That I like what you just said. Hopefully folks heard what you said. It doesn't make you a better person. So, we judge, we put ourselves down, inflate ourselves just to feel good, but there's a different way. I like your way. You're right. Expressive writing is a great way. Now, to be act and then fully, like mindfully. All right.
I'm just waiting for this next lessism to drop. So I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
The Hawaiian shirt was my lessism. So,
All right, I'm waiting. All right, let's let it go.
You there, let it go. So in ACT, in acceptance commitment therapy, we teach patients, and I do this myself, is here's a simple solution. When you hear judgmental thoughts of yourself and others, try to get some separation. We always talk about not getting rid of thoughts because that's impossible, but to get some separation so you can actually have some wisdom on how you wish to navigate. Here's an intervention. Simply saying out loud or writing it or thinking about it is saying this. If you hear a put down of yourself and others or others, simply say this: knowing the mind is having the thought that, knowing the mind is having the thought that. You're basically saying it's because you are not your thoughts. You're
Correct.
not your pain, you're not your feeling. You are the person that's witnessing all of this happening. That's one. And then the second thing is to basically thank the mind for its opinion. That's another technique, like, thank you, mind. Thanks for your opinion. Not in a sarcastic manner, but in a compassionate manner.
Right. But I mean, I used to do this exercise at my office a lot because here's the issue. Okay. So you've heard less of myself talk and you say, since I'm a judgmental, I don't want to be judgmental. So guess what? We try not to be judgmental. What happens? It's worse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, trying not to be judgmental is actually worse than being judgmental because you're suppressing. So I ask my patients, say, look, think of a person that you dislike. Just think of somebody you really dislike and you're judgmental. So obviously you don't like them, but you also consider yourself a little bit better than they are, or a lot better, and just write it down.
Yep.
So what happens, you don't have to like this person, but what happens, you start breaking up this thinking cycle. And again, whether judgmental or not judgmental, it's a problem. So as you write it down, you now have a chance of breaking up the circuits. And you may not like this person, but now possibilities open up. There's a possibility that you can start seeing who this person is, why they do what they do.
Yeah.
And so it's a very powerful tool just literally give up and just write it down and be aware. And the other key issue, so expressive writing we just talked about, but just awareness
Yep.
of what judgment does to you during the day. And again, just watch it. Don't try to change it or fix it.
Right. That's exactly it. We're just trying to notice it. And again, from my interventions, you can simply say, knowing the mind is having the thought that, that I'm not good or they're not good. And then another part from ACT we say is using values. Values is a mental quality of action. So I ask during difficult moments after I've done that, after I've thanked the mind, David, I simply say this is, I quietly say this to myself, how do I wish to be towards myself if I'm judging myself?
Right.
Or towards the other person? And it's compassion. And let's just say it's compassion, kindness, supportive, whatever it is, that quality. Well, what's the action behind it? And so if it's compassionate, my tone of voice will be compassionate towards you, David. So just saying.
I'm not going to go there.
Don't go there, yes.
Right. So I'm your opportunity, Les, to practice your judgment skills.
That's a low blow, David.
So, okay. So here's the deal. We just gave you 5 tools. Now you may not recognize them as 5 tools, but the first one is becoming aware how deadly self-judgment is and self-esteem is compared to self-confidence. Number two, thank your mind, because you're now separating from your mind. You can verbally say it. Third thing is say it or write it down. Then you talked about, what was the fourth one?
It's basically saying as knowing the mind is having the thought that, and then you fill in the blank.
And I know there's five, but I just forgot it.
The last one, that's all right. I got you, David. You know, you surgeons are just focused on like short-term memory of just this. I got this, David. The
Okay.
fifth one is to apply values, and values are basically mental quality of actions that we teach in acceptance and commitment therapy.
Well, Les, thank you. And again, I just would tell you that honestly, actively working on letting self-esteem go is incredibly freeing, because you just said earlier on, it's exhausting to always have judgment going off and on all day long. So also you have the energy to actually live your life. So it's a powerful tool to let it go. You can't just do it with positive thinking. And using some of the tools that we suggested this morning is a very freeing experience.
Yes,
Anyway, Les,
absolutely.
thank you for your insights.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
so this is Dynamic Healing Moments. And Dr. Arya has a workshop coming up, or webinar coming up at 10 o'clock on this Sunday. Is that correct, Les?
Yep, June 6th. Thank you, David, for getting the time right. So, yes,
Right.
June
I had
6th.
it down as Saturday, but it is Sunday at 10 o'clock. And I will post it in the show notes again today, the link to it.
Yeah, thanks.
And it's also on Facebook Live. I'm also on the Facebook page too. And then I'm at the docjourney.com, and you are remedypain.co.
Yep.
And we're around. We love doing this. Hopefully you get some benefit out of this, and have a great day. And by the way, great weekend. So we'll see you Monday.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Have a good one.